Hey guys, I'm going to come at you with a quick video today. As most of you know, my new book, How to Make a Monster, about rampage killers and how they manage to fall between the cracks and why no one really cares and nobody on the anti-gun side is actually trying to solve the issue, even though they ask that all the time. I've been working on that. The book released about 2 weeks early, which is very unusual for anything to happen early in these COVID pandemic times. So I'm right in the process of trying to get it out there. So again, that's why I've been a little slow getting videos out there. For that, I apologize. A lot of stuff needs to be talked about. One thing in particular, from a timing standpoint, 9/11's coming up. The Department of Homeland Security put out a new memo issued Friday, August the 13th. And it's very, very important that we look at this and we talk about some of the reading between the lines, if you will. It appears that they're looking more for people within the United States than they are looking for people outside the United States. Obviously, with the fall of Afghanistan, we're going to see a massive spike in terrorists outside the country that want to behead us because they don't agree with our way of life and our ideology, and they have their own twisted, weird ideology. So while most of us can rightfully expect that terrorism threat to come from outside of our borders, it seems that DHS is looking inside the borders. And you would almost expect that with the amount of people that they let come in at free will across the southern border. So you can only imagine how many potential threats that we have that are coming. But that's not what they're even talking about. They're not looking at outside threats coming in and becoming domestic threats. They're talking about us. These threats include those posed by domestic terrorists, individuals and groups engaged in grievance-based violence. More on that here in a second. They go on to say such threats are also exacerbated by impacts on the ongoing global pandemic, including grievances over public health safety measures and perceived government restrictions. So what they're saying is you're probably and most likely going to be labeled a domestic terrorist if you have a problem with mask mandates, lockdowns, or anything like that related to their pandemic. So now we're going to paint people who disagree with you or question weird little authoritative things. Now we're going to make sure that you learn your lesson because we're going to paint you with this broad brush of being a potential domestic terrorist. They go on to say that through the remainder of 2021, racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, they call that RMVEs, and anti-government, anti-authority violent extremists. Let me explain something to you. I talk about this all the time, like the way they coined the term mass shooter. They're not trying to just demonize the killer. They're trying to demonize the gun by using the word shooter. It ties it to a gun, which makes you have this preconceived notion that guns are just bad. Because every time you hear about a mass shooter, that's a bad thing, right? That's not a positive thing. So they're being successful in having us tie this gun term in with a very negative thing, and that's what they're doing right here. They're saying anti-government, anti-authority, violent extremists. So you're automatically, if you're anti-government and anti-authority, you must be a violent extremist. And you will remain a national threat priority for the United States. These extremists may seek to exploit the emergence of COVID-19 variants by viewing the potential reestablishment of public health restrictions across the United States as a rationale to conduct attacks. Pandemic-related stressors have contributed to increased societal strains and tensions, driving several plots by domestic violent extremists. Now, I put a question mark next to this because they don't put any kind of reference to this. They don't put a footnote. They don't put a link or anything like that. They're referring to this increase in and potentially driving several plots by domestic violent extremists that I haven't heard of. Have you? Have you heard of anyone requiring masks anywhere or a mask mandate or even requiring a vaccine somewhere? Have you heard of any kind of violence against them? I haven't. I've heard people questioning them and I've seen fights and scuffles break out with that. But have you heard any domestic actual attacks or anything like that take place as a result of somebody having an issue with a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate? They're basically trying to tie that in here. If you fall into this group of questioning authority and questioning the government on these crazy lockdowns and mandates that they're putting out there, that you automatically are going to get kicked and knocked into this group, whether it be indirectly, directly, by accident, or on purpose. So that's going to happen. They say, and I put LOL next to here because this is the real threat. Additionally, leading up to the anniversary of 9/11 attacks, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula recently released its first English language copy of Inspire magazine in over 4 years. Wow. So the second bullet, the second most dangerous thing out there, is the potential threat from Al-Qaeda versus people who are questioning mask mandates and vaccines. As we watch Kabul get overthrown and all of these people take on all this military weaponry that the United States once owned that now Taliban and Al-Qaeda have, that's a secondary threat. We're more worried about Paul because he's questioning why you want to jab a mandatory, unproven experimental vaccine into my arm. I'm the real threat, right? Usually this kind of stuff doesn't bother me because it's just words on a paper. And typically it won't mean anything. The problem is it's starting to make it to where you and I doing nothing more than questioning authority. That's all we're doing is questioning authority. Why do you want me to put the mask on? You question me now, I'm going to make you a terrorist. Well, look, all I wanted was some information. No. I'm making you a terrorist now. If you'll remember, the Democrats pushed for a very long time to try to have anybody on the no-fly list listed as ineligible to possess or purchase a firearm. Remember, they pushed for this for quite some time. Dianne Feinstein and many of the others have pushed for this. Now, at the time, it seemed harmless, but you could accidentally be put on there. If you'll remember the murderer, Senator Ted Kennedy was on there. And Ted Kennedy was one of the ones that actually liked that idea of the no-fly list, but yet he was accidentally put on there, and it took an act of Congress, literally speaking, to get him off of there. We don't have that luxury of having that support of Congress, but he was still accidentally put on there. When you go on there, you're not told that you're on there. You have to show up to the airport, try to fly, and realize then that you now are on the no-fly list and you ain't going somewhere today. Again, at the time they were going through all this, I put videos out and I had a problem with it, but I guess I didn't see it this far through. This is what it's coming to. Now, if they can put you somehow or another on a terrorist watch list, you could quietly go on the no-fly list, and then eventually, if the Democrats get their way, being in control of the House and kind of the Senate right now, and of course the White House, it's very possible that if you see something coming up soon on the no-fly list, being able to prevent people from purchasing guns, it's tied to this. This is not like connecting these really weird dots that are very far away. These are two dots that are right next to each other. You put somebody questioning a mask mandate or children wearing masks, you put them on a terrorist list because you just have it in words here that if they question it, they're somehow a terrorist. Now, oh, Paul's a terrorist? On that list, they're going to immediately slide me over and put me on that no-fly list because, hey, we don't want terrorists flying on airplanes, do we? And now they passed the law to say that those people now can't purchase guns. This is coming full circle. Friends, if it's not too much to ask, I would ask that you go to howtomakeamonster.com. Again, that is howtomakeamonster.com. This is my brand new book that came out. It's on rampage killers, or what the left typically refers to as a mass shooter, again, to try to demonize the guns involved. It's a very, very deep dive into it. I actually look at the things that I truly believe has an effect, or they have an effect, on potential killers being made over time. And it also talks about the shortcomings. It talks about the organizations out there who don't want this problem solved, who make really good money off of rampage killings. Everyone from the media to the gun control, anti-gun movement out there, to even politicians who are making really, really good money from anti-gun people. This problem is not trying to be solved right now. And I actually put that in paper. I have 254 footnotes in here. So it's not just a matter of me blabbing out there. I cite all my sources on here, all the facts are in here, and you can check it out. Go to howtomakeamonster.com. Again, howtomakeamonster.com. You can put in a certain area where you ask me to write something in the front of the book. No charge for that, obviously. You can get it in paperback or you can get it in hardback. You can choose all that stuff on the website, howtomakeamonster.com.